Good morning. Happy Saturday. This is licensed mental health clinician and certified end-of-life doula Ami Clark here. And I don't usually make videos for Saturdays, but today I'm going to do it because I put it on my personal post. But, I'd like to talk about a subject here that is actually very personal to me. And that subject is shame. So, on the news, they're talking about, J.D. Vance. I mean, the guy who's a Christian nationalist, or in reality, maybe pretending to be a Christian nationalist. I don't know. I don't trust the media, like I said, my personal account. But there's this whole ordeal about him, whole thing about him masturbating between sofa cushions, couch cushions, as well as looking up dolphin and woman kink online. And I've noticed that he's basically being shamed for it, if you think about it, And I think one of the reasons they're doing that is because most of the time, the people who project the most hate and shame on others are really projecting themselves. And this post has nothing to do with this whole J.D. Vance ordeal. I just wanted to use that as an example. This post has a lot to do with shame that we are indoctrinated with. And I don't mean indoctrinated religiously, like religion and shit. I mean it's instilled in us by people who have abused us verbally, emotionally, physically. And we live with that shame. It grows in us. And it's our responsibility to get the help so we can learn how to basically accept ourselves for who we are, forgive ourselves, and do away with that shame, because that shame isn't ours. The shame belongs to the abuser. But, I say that a lot in my sessions with my clients. And I have to be honest and say shame is something I struggle with every day of my life. I struggle with a lot of shame. I have shame for a lot of things, and it all comes from my upbringing. I can't blame my parents on it. Everything. I can't blame them on my parents. All the things that have happened in my life as an adult, I cannot blame on my parents. I make choices. There are consequences to some choices, so I can take accountability. But growing up, I was instilled with a lot of shame. And the subject I'm going to use regarding shame would be finances. Finances is one of my biggest triggers. I've been shamed for it since I was 18 years old. My Uncle Louis, who I loved very dearly, passed away in the 90s. And he left people an inheritance. And it was about $8,000. Before I went off to college the first, as I call it, which was East Stroudsburg University, I dropped out in like a year. I was given that $8,000. Now, if this was a gift, so technically I could do whatever the hell I wanted with that money, because that's what my uncle also, he was all about. If it's a gift, you do what you want. And honestly, in the 90s, that $8,000 lasted me a good year. And my parents were very upset about that because, and it wasn't just my parents, it was my mother's mother too, rest her soul, because they, I think, had expectations. They wanted me to save my money and had expectations, maybe invest it. But I'm 18 years old with $8,000. I've never seen that much money in my entire life in that bank account. You don't think I'm going to have a little fun with that? But I did get shamed. Oh my gosh, did I get shamed? I got shamed hard for that. I got shamed for not saving that money, for all that money going. And then that shame continued to my 20s. When I moved back to New York and from Pennsylvania, and I wasn't really good at keeping a job, and it wasn't that I wasn't good at it. When I think about it in hindsight, it was because I had so much anxiety, and any boss that would treat me like shit, that would yell at me for something minute that wouldn't do anything to the business, I was out of that company. I don't want to be around abusive people, There was also the other aspect of total anxiety. What was going to happen the next day. And a lot of that time, my choices were not to come in, which wasn't smart. And that would get me fired, or I would just quit. I was pretty much a job hopper. So I was shamed for that. It would take years. I don't think that stopped until I was 28, 29. in 2007 when I was at a job for 8 years, and then it kept going from there. So recently I've had issues, where I was working one place where they promised stuff, and this was back in February, where they did one thing and then they gave me great health insurance, all of this, and then they took it all away, changed it to health insurance I could never use, and over bombarded me with clients saying that, oh, now you have to make this much in order to make this salary, which to me is bullshit. And so I left that job and went to another job, and that job was great. Where I went next was great. My boss was great. I'm not saying that the people at the other job weren't great, but they just weren't giving me what they promised. My boss was great. And it just didn't work out because of the lack of clients. It wasn't my boss's fault. By the time I got in, they had hacked somebody had hacked the health insurance. United Healthcare was hacked, so a lot of people couldn't apply for therapy if they had United Healthcare, and it froze a lot of the credential aspect of things on Headway. It just really slowed things down, and it got to the point that I wasn't making enough money, enough of a sustainable living, and I felt bad for having to leave, honestly, because I was freaking out. I gave that boss a hard time, I'm not gonna lie, and she was great. But I got another job recently, and I'm waiting to starting in August, and I'm going to stay there because I had to bite the bullet and actually leave my house because I was working remotely for 4 years. So during this time, money has been scarce, and my husband has been the one picking up the slack. I mean, he doesn't have anything else to fall back on, which is not cool. And of course, I feel ashamed of this big time. The shame is fucked. I mean, it's bad. And it comes out in the most fucked up ways, because when he needs to talk about his worries about finances, I take it like a personal attack when he's not doing that, because it's the shame, you see. And then we project that personal attack on other people, and my poor husband has been getting just that. And that's not something he deserves, and it's because of shame. You see what I'm saying here? Shame makes us unhappy. If we don't just accept ourselves, if we don't just live our truth, it makes us unhappy, okay? And it's not going to stop until we get some help, which is what I'm doing. I've been in trauma therapy for 2 years, and it's been helping a lot, because I'm finally doing the work that I've ignored and internalized for decades, Shame doesn't make us feel good about ourselves. Shame hurts us, and so we hurt other people with it. And people like J.D. Vance are doing that. People like Christian nationalists, trust me, open their closets, you'll find a shit ton of skeletons that they should just really come to terms with, instead of projecting it onto everyone else. So when we think about the things we were shamed for in our lives, this is my question. What do you do to cope with that, to stomp on the shame? What do you do to help yourself to get through that? Thank you.